Welcome to Consulting Mastery, where we help B2B consultants master the business of consulting. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Ahmed. Join us as we explore the art of delivering outstanding client value, earning a higher income, and thriving in today's marketplace. Why do buyers of consulting or professional services buy? And more specifically, why do your buyers buy from you? We're going to talk about today why that's a really important data source and why you're probably not gathering as much information as you should be from those clients. Before we get into it, if you're looking for help with your marketing, your sales, your lead generation, your business development, your positioning, your messaging, any and all of the above, head over to 90daypipeline.com/talk and we'll see if we can help. Here's how this came up, Carrie. Been talking to a number of prospective consultants consultants and prospective consultants. And it's come to my attention that I think us as a business, and we teach these things and we sometimes make the mistakes, which is okay to admit and very human. But I don't think we're gathering as much data as we can from the arguably the most important conversion point. And we have a lot of data. I mean, I say this to you and because you're on the inside, like we have tons of data from a marketing perspective, tons of data on who's coming to us and what they're consuming and where they're coming from and what they responded to. We have tons of data. But when it comes to why do people actually pull the trigger? What makes them actually, sign the contract and part with their resources? That's where I think our data could be a lot stronger. And I started asking people, after they convert, and our team has started asking after they convert, not before. And that's an important distinction, not before they convert, but after they convert, after they buy. What motivated you to do this? What made you pull the trigger? And what I'm finding and what I'm trying to encourage people to do here is you're going to get such rich data that might not be statistically significant, to be fair. Like, if you're only closing a couple of deals a quarter, you might not get a ton of data that you can extrapolate to the market. But I can promise you, you're going to get data that's going to give you really strong insight as to why the people that are purchasing from you, becoming your clients, are doing so. And I want to make the case as to why that's the most important data, because that's what's working. Everyone else who's not buying from you, let's just be generalistic about things and say it's not working on them. But the people that are buying, whatever you're doing from a marketing, sales, offer perspective is evidently working. And my contention is you're probably not spending enough time or energy or thinking enough about why are they pulling the trigger? What's making them buy?
Question for you, as you've been doing this more recently than previously, how often are you surprised?
I wouldn't say I'm surprised as much as it becomes very clear, and this is an interesting insight for us, but probably also going to be relevant to a lot of people, that they buy for reasons that have to do with them and not to do with us. So in our case, what I want to hear is, well, you guys are amazing. And clearly you have the best solution. And clearly your marketing was this, that, and the other. And those are factors, right? Obviously they're trying to work with the best option, but usually it has something to do with their current stage of business or their current circumstances or their, in our case, it's, I just lost a big whale client. I'm trying to replace revenue. I've tried X, Y, and Z in the past. And the timing just makes sense now. It's usually what we're uncovering, which is interesting because, a lot of people, I think, they try to solve marketing problems by demonstrating that they're better. We're better than the competition. We're better than this offer. We're the best in the market. And we maybe have been guilty of that in the past. Whereas what I'm finding is that, a lot of folks, they need to see that you are obviously the best option. That's I think, table stakes in some regards, but that's not why they buy, which kind of makes sense, right? You don't buy a car because it's the best car. You buy a car because you need a car, right? And then maybe you choose the best car within your options, but you buy it because there's a need, and the timing is such that you're willing to part with resources to satisfy that need. And I'm getting some interesting data on that.
Yeah, and I'm going to push this a little bit more because maybe surprised was too far of a too far of a leap. But the thing that is super critical here is recognizing that why you think they buy is not the articulation that they are going to give for why they buy. So to your point, right, if the assumption is, well, we did a great job, right? Or even if you are client focused and you assume specific reasons about why they bought that are associated to them, I guarantee that if you truly, truly, truly listen, ask the question overtly and listen. And that's important, right? Because what I don't want people to walk away from this conversation is thinking, well, what I need to do is just sort of like stop at the end of the conversation and make my assumption about why they bought. What you're talking about is asking the very clear and specific question, and you are not going to get the same answer that you think you're going to get. It may be related, they may be connected, but this goes back to what we talk about all the time, right? Which is about the whole exercise you're going through is to be clear about what your client needs and wants. And the only way to truly get that is to ask the question. And then, more importantly, actually listen to what they're saying, the words they're using, how they're saying it, the emotion behind it, and taking the time, taking the pause at that moment. And that's hard to do, right? You've just made the sale. You're excited. You want to hang up the phone and high five yourself and, do a little dance, all the things that you do post close. But taking the time, slowing down in that moment, that's where the value is going to really arise.
It doesn't have to be right after you close the deal, right? This could be on your kickoff meeting. This could be a quick email that you send after the contract signed. There's different ways of getting the data, and you can work this into your process in a way that makes sense. I think if I enroll a client and then you ask me, Carrie, well, why did so and so enroll? What I'm going to give you is my story as to why they enrolled, right? And chances are my story is going to be very self-flattering. Well, I helped them see this, right? Well, I articulated that. Well, they deemed it was a good fit based on what I said about this, that, and the other. And even if it's not self-flattering or self-aggrandizing, it's going to be through my filter. Like I was part of that conversation. And I may argue, and maybe getting into the weeds here, but I may argue that the person that closed the deal is not the person that should ask this question.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the important thing about the question is not how did you close the deal? The question is why did they buy, right? Yeah. But it's interesting when you talk about it maybe shouldn't be the person that closes the deal, and I tend to agree with you. There's also risk, though. I do believe that there's a very specific sweet spot when this question can be asked, because you also need to be super, super careful about asking it too late, right? You've now been working with them. You've delivered results for a month. They're super excited. And now you're having a conversation. You ask them the question. And now you've just done yourself a complete disservice because they're going to feed back all the stuff they've learned in the time that you spent together. So it needs to happen, in fairly short order once the deal's been closed, and with a very specific focus on collecting that information only without influencing it.
It's between deal closing and kickoff.
Yeah,
of service delivery for sure. Yeah. An example of this comes to mind. We did a round of customer research interviews not too long ago. And, I think what came out of that was, it wasn't that, when we asked this question, why did you buy? And it wasn't that anything that we heard was surprising, but it was the way it was articulated is what was valuable, right? So if you ask me why did a certain client that I enrolled buy, I may have an explanation that's reasonably accurate, but what I won't have is their words. I'll have my words. So I'll give you an example of an articulation that I thought was fairly useful, and I think we ended up copying and pasting into our marketing, which is literally what you ought to be doing. You should be taking your clients' words and copying and pasting them into your marketing with as little adulteration as possible. And so I was talking to a client and asked the question, what made you choose to work with us? Like, why us and why not other options? And the answer this particular client gave me was, you folks were the only ones who were marrying this idea of be a consultant with use LinkedIn. There's a lot of people out there that are teaching consulting, but they teach it in a very kind of academic way. And it's like how to build an offer, but there's no actual, like rubber hits the road lead generation or revenue generation that comes with it. It's just be a consultant in theory. And then there's people who are teaching LinkedIn, but they're teaching it for everybody, like LinkedIn for e-commerce, LinkedIn for, life coaches, LinkedIn for SaaS companies, so on and so forth. And you guys seem to have an approach to like teaching me how to be a consultant. Like if I want to learn consulting, I'm in the right place, but also empowering me with a, actual lead generation strategy that's tailor-made to a consultant. And I didn't see that elsewhere. And that was interesting because at the time, we were really doubling down on some LinkedIn messaging in our marketing, still are to a certain extent, and kind of having this debate like, well, who are we? Are we like the LinkedIn people or the consulting people? And I think this client gave us a kind of an elegant way to bring it all together that had a tangible impact on how we created marketing going forward.
And I would say going forward is a critical phrase there, because this is something that you can't stop doing. And it's really tempting to try to figure it out once, right? I'm going to ask my first 10 clients, see what they say. Then I'll know. Then I'll be able to just carry on and, walk forward with confidence and everything will be great. And that might be true for a short period of time. But recognizing that we are all in a world where everything's changing around us, right? The market is changing, competition is changing, all the tactics and tools and best practices are changing. This needs to be part of a lifetime exercise to not just learn what your customers need and want and learn how they talk about what they need and want, but to ensure that you are staying abreast of that day after day, week after week, month after month, so that you can be ahead of making those shifts that you need to make and have the most effective marketing machine possible.
Well, in the last, as long as 90-day pipeline's been alive and well, which is about 5.5, we're going to hit 6 years this summer. And in that time, we've graduated. I don't even know the exact number. I keep guesstimating. We're just over 900. Should hit 1,000 this year, but let's just say it's 900. The reasons why the first 10 bought are radically different from the reasons why the last 10 bought. Because in that time, and that's maybe an extreme example because 5 or 6 years is a long time, everything's changed, right? The market's changed, competition's changed. 5 or 6 years ago, I think we were the only show in town, really. Like there weren't a lot of options. And that's still true to a certain extent, but there are certainly a lot more perceived alternatives to working with us today. There's a lot more noise in the marketplace that now our marketing has to cut through. Our marketing had an easier job 5, 6 years ago, less noise. Now it's got a much harder job because there's more noise. The economy that we were operating in 5, 6 years ago, different from the economy today, right? The way that prospects thought by virtue of where the economy is and how they thought about their businesses and their prospects and their clients and their expertise, fundamentally different. We're dealing with a much more mature market now than we used to deal with back in the day. So it's all change. And to your point, if we don't consistently ask these questions, and I'm using a fairly extreme time horizon, but the truth is it's also changed in the past 6 to 12 months, even more recently. And so, to the extent that you have, and we'll end on this note, to the extent that you have conversions, clients who are buying, which, if you don't, again, 90daypipeline.com/talk, let's have a conversation because you need clients. To the extent that you have clients who are buying, you need to understand at a very granular level what specifically, not generally, what specifically motivated them to pull the trigger. And I promise you, that's going to unlock insights that can help you re-engineer those reasons for many, many, many more clients.